Welcome to Skillshot and Ghost. As you're seeing the sausage being made. This is the first, I think, ever someone has spoken on this stage. The atrium that you pass through with the giant LED screen is not officially open for business, but approximately 1 month from now, we think it'll be open, and we're excited to do really hype live esports events and other events in that space. And I think most of you got to go on the tour and see the production studio and the team house and the classroom. If you didn't, if you're here for the second part, we definitely want to make sure if you want to see it, you get to see it. So stick around, and after the programming, we'll stick around and walk you through that space. So yeah, the next few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about esports in general and specifically about collegiate esports because there's so much happening there. Esports is new, and then collegiate esports is like the way new, like not even first inning yet. So very, very early. And this presentation is brought to you by those two brands below. If you saw the tour and it wasn't clear because there was just a lot of flashing lights and people talking quickly, Skillshot does esports events and makes esports related media, and Ghost is a professional esports team. So the analogy is not exactly perfect, but if you think about basketball, Skillshot is a little bit more like ESPN, sometimes a little bit like the NBA because they organize leagues. Ghost is more like the Hawks in that they actually are playing in competition. The difference is Ghost plays in different games all under the Ghost banner, the same way the Georgia State Panthers play in different games all under that banner. So let's talk about college esports. And I am not showing the video, but if you happen to be watching the Today Show, if some of you still watch TV, they did do a pretty nice profile on college esports this past Sunday, and it's available online. So a few corrections in their coverage, but at a high level, it was important because, you know, it's the Today Show. It's Sunday morning spotlight, and they're talking about not just esports, but college esports. So it's very much of the moment. I encourage you to check that online. I will not play the video here. Next slide, please. So just so we're all oriented, we'll just start with a working definition of esports, and you may find a different one, but this is the one we're going to go with. It's about as simple as possible. So organized, competitive video games, often played in front of spectators. You might have people debate whether there has to be production values or spectators or not, but that's going to be our working definition of esports, at least for today. So let's go. So why should you care about this at all? So that's what we're going to talk about, why you should care about it and why you should care about collegiate esports, particularly if you're in this region of Georgia and Metro Atlanta. So I'm going to hit it quickly because I think this hopefully covers everyone in the audience. So some of you are game developers. Why should you care about esports? Some of you are gamers. Why should you care? Some of you might be students or educators. Some of you might actually want to work in the esports industry, and then maybe there's some companies from brands or agencies. Why should you care? And I'm going to hit all these really quickly, and then find me later if you have deeper questions, or just raise your hand throughout. And then we're going to give you a free event ticket at the end so you can see an esport event in person. All right, first I'm going to hit why I care. So like Andrew said, I used to work at Hi-Rez Studios, which was amazing. So I co-founded that studio. It started with 4 of us. That company's now 450 people. We made some awesome video games. Anyone play Smite? Paladin? Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was really fun. And great people there, still great people there making great games. And the only types of games that we made were multiplayer competitive games because that's what we enjoyed playing. And there's a lot of things that got me excited about esports, but I'll boil it down to one story. When I was still at Hi-Rez, I was doing things related to Smite, and I talked to a young person by the name of Daniel who was very excited because he was playing Smite for his high school team, earning a varsity letter. And he told me he had never before been able to be attached to his school in the same way. And that's because I came to learn Daniel was in a wheelchair. So he could not play traditional sports. And so for the first time, he could represent his school. And that just crystallized for me what had kind of been obvious, in that esports is the ultimate accessible activity. Whether you're differently abled, whether you're male or female, whether you're built to play, the traditional basketball build or the traditional football build or not. Games like hockey, if you don't grow up with an ice rink, you're never going to play. So while there are some access issues still with gaming that we as an industry are working on, it has the potential to really be life-changing for individuals and helpful, I believe, for the world. So that story with Daniel affected me. And at the same time, I just saw the numbers at Hi-Rez. I was like, this gaming thing is not going to stop. Like, I can't tell you what game is going to be popular 3 years from now, but I can tell you more people are going to be playing games. And they're going to be playing them in a structured fashion, and they're going to be wanting to watch other people play games. Of that, I know. So both from a commercial opportunity, business, and also a chance to help the world and kind of build character, I wanted to go all in on this esports thing. So that's what I've done with Skillshot and Ghost. So that's why I care. Let's go back to why you care. If you're a game developer, how many people are makers of games? Okay, awesome. Props to you. It's really hard work to make a video game, especially a successful game. And not all video games are multiplayer, obviously. Not all multiplayer games should be an esport. But if you happen to be making the type of game that is multiplayer and has some competition, you're probably thinking about esports at some level for your community. And we definitely thought about it a lot at Hi-Rez. And you see all these developers like Hi-Rez, like Riot with League of Legends and Epic with Fortnite. They're spending a lot of money on these events. Most of the money in esports comes from the game publisher. Why do they do that? Well, they believe that it has positive return for their main business, which is the game. That's what they believe, and that's what we believed. But how do you know that's true? Like, it could be that we are spending all this money and time on Smite, and more people are watching Smite and they're playing Smite less. Like, that's not the intuition, but it could have been the case. So we said we're actually going to research it because I'm like a data geek. So that's what we did. So number one, if you just look well beyond Hi-Rez, and this was actually back in 2017, of the games that make the most money, that's what 15 highest monetizing games are, 7 back in 2017 also happened to have the most prizing associated with them. So that's just kind of an interesting nugget that has only increased with games like Fortnite. So there's some association there. You don't really know what the cause is, but a lot of these games making a lot of money also have really big esports scenes associated with them. So we said we're going to keep digging in. And so the next slide. And we said we want to do some research on how does watching esports affect playing esports. Next slide. So fortunately, we had an interface between your game account within the game Smite and your Twitch account where most people watch esports happen. And that meant we could look at particular sets of users in Smite and whether they were actually watching esports or not. And we worked with Emory. We worked with 2 PhDs. They spent more than a year on this study, and we could basically look at how their in-game behavior, like what they're doing inside the video game Smite, compared to their viewing habits of watching other people play Smite as an esport. Okay, next slide. And so at the end of the day, we were trying to understand what is actually the effects of watching esports on your play rate and on your in-game spending. We looked at some other things as well, but that's kind of what matters the most if you're a game publisher. And if it does affect behavior, then why? Okay, next slide. And the group, these PhDs, I mean, they're PhDs for a reason. They're pretty smart. So because they couldn't really do like a perfect control study, what they did is they basically looked at when a Smite when there were 8 weeks of the Smite Pro League, which was kind of the premium esports content, they looked before that period at a group of players, and they kind of segmented that into players that watched esports and those that didn't watch esports. But they went farther than that because it wouldn't really be fair if they weren't like groups. So they started with a group that played the same amount of time and spent the same amount of money like before the Smite Pro League, and then looked at what happened after the Smite Pro League to see was there a difference in behavior from those that watched and those that doesn't. And if anyone's interested, I'll send you the 20-page report, but the punchline, as you can imagine, because it would not be very impressive if they spent less, there was almost 600 more minutes played in average. So not only are they watching esports, they're also playing the game more, not counting their watch time. And on average, during that 8-week period, they spent $5 more. Times a lot of players can be very material. So that was good to see. It kind of backed up our intuition that, yeah, this esports stuff is good. It's a valuable marketing spend. Okay, keep going. So bottom line, they played more. They spent more. By the way, they also won slightly more, not a lot, but they did improve a little bit from watching also. Yeah, question? Right. The question was there increased engagement time? Did that count spectating other people? It did not. That was just an apples to apples of how much are you actually playing the game yourself. But it is a good point. A lot of these games you can, even if you're not watching Twitch, you can spectate other games that are going on. All right, let's keep going. Hopefully, if you're a developer, that at least piques your interest that maybe there's something to this esports thing. Maybe it's going to help us make more money, drive more engagement, keep our game around longer. All right, next, if you are a gamer, next slide. So some of the things that were highlighted in the Today Show report, which are accurate, are the following. If you're a gamer and you're thinking about the college esports market specifically, number one, it is true that most colleges these days have an esports club. It's usually part of the student union, but you can find that at almost every college right now. There's 200 universities with varsity esports programs. Varsity usually means there's a place on campus to play. There's often a coach who is paid a salary, and oftentimes, not always, there's scholarships. Every year, there's $16 million in esports scholarships given out across the U.S., and we've got many leading programs here in Georgia. Georgia State often gets the accolade because they're on this best list, being in the top 10. But we have many, many programs here in Georgia that are competing at a very high level competitively and also with curriculum and with scholarship. And there's a really big trend in more investment in terms of building facilities. I remember when, I think it was University of California, Berkeley or Irvine, spent $300,000 on an esports facility, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, that is jaw-dropping, right? Okay, a month ago, North Carolina State says $16 million, right? So things are definitely escalating quite a bit. All right, that's if you're a gamer. If you're a student or a teacher, I'm going to brag about some of my favorite organizations here. So it used to just be called esports or youth esports, but there's now a term out there called scholastic esports, which really gets to the heart of all this for me. And it is video games as a Trojan horse for education and positive student outcomes. So there's a lot of programs out there trying to help young people with job skills, with STEM, and they all are well-intentioned, but they kind of forget the whole leading a horse to water thing. If you don't have the kids' attention, you got nothing. What has the kids' attention? Video games. Nobody's business. It's video games and then oxygen. So this works really, really well. So next slide, a couple of organizations here. NASIF, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, is started as a North American group. It's actually global, and they're headquartered in Georgia. As of about a year ago, they moved from California to Georgia, and then NASIF has multiple affiliates all over the world, including our friends at GCEF. Wes, stand up. So Wes, a co-founder of GCEF. So anyone that's interested in getting involved, it's an all-volunteer band. It's great. See Wes or myself, and we'll plug you into GSEF. But we help junior highs and high schools use video games for education. I will play this one video. This is just happens to be interesting. It's not Georgia-based, but it's from one of the largest school districts in the country, Miami-Dade in Florida. And most of this group, you're already converted, but this is useful for old people who are not. So we'll play the video.
Esports is relevant to us because it's relevant to the kids. So if we want to transform the American classroom, if we want to make it both rigorous, relevant, but fun, if we want to excite them about their own learning, then let's bring something to them they understand, they navigate well, that adapts to the way they live, the way they entertain themselves, but let's use it as a powerful tool of education. That's why esports speaks loudly to me, because it speaks loudly to them. For those who are somewhat doubtful about the impact of the benefit, speak to your students. Gauge the level of interest and engagement in a traditional classroom where all you do is rote learning, compared to an environment where students can actually navigate an educational space that integrates STEM and STEAM, integrates new technology alongside the necessary standards. And you'll see that their mindset, the way their brains are wired, is compellingly different than the way our very own work. So if we want to maximize learning, understand the brain of a child, understand the way they think, the way they learn, what captivates them today, how connected they are, and then create environments that quite frankly match their own ambitions, and learning will prosper. Parents probably are often concerned about the amount of time that young people are in front of screens, but being engaged from the earlier stage of game development and participation and competition can be productive, can be engaged, and can actually boost student achievement. And that's why I believe in it. That's why we have it in our school system.
So all the NASA programming is free. If you're a teacher, if you know teachers, if you're a student, if you think this would be a fit for your program, contact GSEF. Go to the next slide. Or we could just watch it again. Awesome. So for those of you wanting to work in esports, and there's a bunch of great companies here that approach it from different angles, from merchandise to game development to tournament organization, etc. If you're just getting started, and again, I mentioned this on the tour, and this is not the only program in Georgia, there's others as well, but I'll point out the partnership that we have and this facility has with the Georgia Film Academy, which I mentioned to those of you on the tour. So participating Georgia universities, or you don't have to go through a university, you can just do it as a certification without college credit. You can sign up, take a 16-week course, and get hands-on experience with Skillshot, with Ghost, with other industry partners, and emerge with a better chance to work in the industry. And we work really closely with GFA on an internship program. So I don't know, do we have any folks that have come through? Is a Hill in here? He was in here. There you go. There's at least one. So we probably have about 10 individuals, even though we've only been doing this for 3 semesters, that have passed through and are working, particularly at Skillshot or other Georgia locations. And if you can't make the 16 weeks and you want to do it in 1 week because you're a high achiever and you're in junior high or you're a high school, we have that. There's 2 one-week day camps that are happening in this facility. You get hands-on, you get to play a little Rocket League at the same time, and there's still openings in those. So that is that. And then for brands and agencies, which I could and have talked for days on, but I won't, I'm just going to show you 2 slides. If you know brands, this is the first one. I love sports. The sports audience is graying, as they say. So this is the average age per traditional sport. For esports, it's higher than most people think, but it's young compared to the others, right? Most of these numbers go up about a year every 2 years. So it is definitely a graying audience. So what if you want to reach the next generation and stay relevant, whether you're trying to hire people, whether you're trying to sell services, sell products? You should look at gaming. You should look at esports. That's where the attention is. Let's go to one more slide, which I think is the final one. So this kind of shows you generationally, which is interesting. I need my little cheat sheet because I keep losing track of who exactly is Gen Z and millennials as I keep going up the ladder. But the big takeaway here is every generation, a higher percentage of that generation is playing games, and their amount of time spent on leisure activity is going more to games as well, right? So if you look at the audience of Gen Z and millennial, which is where many brands are targeting, and particularly if you're looking at the college audience like we're talking about, 8 out of 10 are engaged with gaming today. So that's why you should care about that. I have many more stats if you need them. Let's keep going. All right, we're at the end. You can see all of this for yourself. If you've never been to a live esports event, that's the best way to understand it and see the passion level. And we're fortunate because Atlanta in general had a lot of opportunity to host events. Then COVID happened, things have been very quiet, and now the industry is just opening up again. And Atlanta and many partners candidly took a huge chance hosting this event and saying, we're just going to do it, and we're going to do it in May. We had to talk with every major publisher to make sure they were comfortable doing it. We had to find a venue, and candidly, an event like this we'd normally plan for a year, and we're doing it in about a month. So I need your help to get the word out and come and make it awesome for Atlanta and for our college community. So this event is really 3 days of activities, so put it on your calendar. On May 6th, there's more of just a networking business event. There will be no esports. This will be at our friends at Access Replay, which is Allie's new location right by Georgia Tech. It'll be a chance to gather, talk about esports, meet some of the college coaches who are coming in from all over the country. More of a vibe of this sort of thing, not video games and stands and productions, but through Andrew, we will get an invitation out to this group. And then on Saturday and Sunday, live esports action, 10 hours at Gateway Arena. So that is a big event. There's never been an event like this where this is really, I call it May Madness, right? It's 64 teams from all over the U.S. battling in 4 of the most popular games here in Atlanta, right? So that's what we're going to make happen. Let's go to one more slide. So all the collegiate roads around the U.S. are leading to Atlanta. They're leading to Gateway. You can see some of the partners that are involved, some of who I shouted out in here. All of the pro teams, the pro esports teams are involved. So Atlanta FaZe, Atlanta Reign, Ghost Gaming, the Talon. The Atlanta Hawks are engaged. A few additional brands that have been announced since then that are also coming on board. Our friends at Community and the HBCU Esports League are engaged. Our friends at GameHers, which advocates for women in gaming, are engaged. It really is the most inclusive event of its kind, but it's also a first-year event. First-year events are tough. Like it takes time to build. So you're the group that needs to show up, and in order to do that, I'm giving you a free ticket if you act literally right now. I think there's about as many tickets as there are people in this room, no lie. If you go right now to this website, like literally do it now because it may not be available tomorrow, in the bottom corner, it says use package code. Ignore that. That's for something else. That's for group sales. Press the ticket you want, go through the cart, enter in Skillshot, GGDA, CECC, and that ticket should be free. And you can claim it, and you can come and see us. Do it now. We'll see you there. It'll be a good time. I'll open it up for a few minutes of questions, and then we'll hit our second panel. But what questions you guys have?
We've got one question already. What is the hardest thing about putting on an esports event?
Oh, my God. There's not a single easy thing, dude. The hardest thing. I would say, well, for a first-time event organizer, my main guidance, because sometimes people just don't realize this, the game publisher is very, very important. They wield the most power in the ecosystem. So if you're doing a modest event, most game publishers have what's called a community license on their webpage, and it tells you the parameters around which you can do it. If you're doing a big event like this, really the first hard thing, and then there's a lot of other hard things. The first hard thing is getting the publisher to say, yes, you're actually approved to do an event at this scale that will have prizing, in the tens of thousands of dollars, that will have live competition. So that gets you to the starting line. And then the next hardest thing is probably wrangling players. They're never at the right place at the right time. So that was the hardest thing.
I got a GGDA question. How many volunteers are you looking for?
Oh, wow. My first ask is that you just come and get your butts in seats. And then after that, we could probably use around 25-ish volunteers. So it's a good question. I'll follow up with you after, but yeah, see him. Yeah, it's a lot of wrangling players. It's guest management. It's helping with security. It's not as much production, which you saw, just because that requires a set of experience. But it's mainly kind of event services in general. So security, wrangling players, maybe helping with an activation. I should mention, beyond. So it's in a basketball arena. You sit, you watch these college teams play, but we also have these other secondary activations. So again, it's our friends from GSEF are going to be running a Brawlhalla tournament and other things to be announced that are open to everyone. You don't have to be in college. You can just come and play. And there's going to be a Smash tournament from at least one provider and a few other activations there. So it'll be more of that festival vibe, not just esports. Maybe. We could do it.
You got the indie cluster here now.
Yeah, we could potentially do it. Any other questions? If not, people can grab me afterwards. Oh, there was one. Yes.
Is there any plans to do this at a professional level, like doing show matches or invites to larger professional organizations?
Yeah, 100%. So before the pandemic, Skillshot did the first Overwatch homestand here for the Reign. We did that complete activation. We've done all of the Hi-Rez professional matches. We will be doing, what can I say? Brawlhalla, there'll be things coming. And then also on the Ghost Gaming front, we kind of have some invitationals planned as well. And this venue where we're doing it, because we used to do a lot of events at Cobb Energy Center. This particular venue was also used by the Atlanta FaZe for their Call of Duty Pro event. That's been the one esports event to date at this venue, which also really helps kind of build the whole community, because back to that question, it's very hard to go into a venue the first time and do an event because the checklist of things that you think you need, they don't have, and then you still miss things on the checklist. So the discovery process of actually doing multiple events in venues around Atlanta or Georgia or the Southeast, that helps the next event organizer do it a little easier. All right. Okay.
You mentioned about the grading of sports and esports in general. What is esports doing to introduce this medium to older individuals?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, there's definitely some companies where that's their whole focus, and a lot of that is being done through corporate leagues. And that's one of the ways that we've got a lot of ideas and a lot of events that we're going to be announcing now that things are opened up. But we did a corporate event with Make-A-Wish, which was great, where teams fielded Fortnite squads on behalf of their company, and they kind of paid to participate, and all the money went to Make-A-Wish Georgia. And those sort of cause-based effects tend to appeal to older decision makers at brands who may not quite get it, but they like the cause give back nature. All right. Yes. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's a little bit more. So on the Skillshot, it's a little professional development around tournament organization and production. On the Ghost side, and you can see Brandon with the hat and the shirt. If people have questions afterwards. So that's really where we'll be looking at new talent development around content creators and players. And just to give you kind of the full story there, because you saw the space, it's brand new, it's a work in progress. So Ghost was a brand that was built in Los Angeles a few years ago. We really liked the brand. We moved it to Atlanta and put the operations here next week. We've got some of the YouTubers that are very, very big for Ghost coming to market next week or the following week. We've got our Valorant team coming to train in market. So we're putting a big focus on this local area, getting more experienced people here, and then around some of those experienced people, we can start doing programs that are focused on kind of talent development. We're also working really, really early, and if any partners want to join us in this, we did build out a couple schools this year with Esports Labs, Skillshot, and Ghost, putting computers in a middle school and a high school, which is the very early side of talent development, basically. So, all right, I'm done. Let's let the other people talk. Thanks.